They say when your life changes, it doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes, it comes with the sound of crunching metal and a jolt that sends your heart into your throat. That morning, I woke up restless. I don't know why I insisted on driving myself. I have a driver, David, always prompt, always quiet, always reliable. But something about that morning made me want to feel the road beneath my own hands. Maybe I was tired of having everything done for me. Maybe I just wanted to remind myself I still had control. The Ferrari was a recent impulse purchase. Red, naturally. Flashy. Loud. A machine that roared like it wanted attention, even when you whispered down the freeway. I had barely driven it more than a few miles around the estate, but today I took it out onto the open roads of the city. Just a man and his car, and for a moment, that was enough. I was 3 blocks from my office. Traffic light turned yellow, then red. I stopped. It was a perfect morning. Cloudless. Music low. My phone buzzed once, probably a board meeting update, but I ignored it. Then it happened. A sharp bang behind me. The kind of sound you don't forget, even if you want to. My body jerked forward, restrained by the seatbelt. My knuckles went white on the wheel. For a split second, I was still. Listening. Processing. Someone had just rear-ended me. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear, but from the sharp invasion of my carefully controlled world. A crash in a car like mine isn't just noise. It's disruption. Chaos. I took a deep breath, unbuckled, and stepped out. And that's when I saw her. She was already out of her car, a beat-up silver Toyota, looking at the damage with wide eyes and trembling fingers. Her brown hair was tied in a loose bun, strands falling over her face. She wore a simple beige coat, the kind that had seen more winters than it should. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine. And just like that, everything else faded. She looked terrified. I'm so sorry, she stammered, her voice cracking. I didn't mean to. My brakes, something's wrong, I didn't see the light change. Please don't call the police, She stopped herself. Her hands were shaking. It took me a moment to remember I was supposed to be angry. This was a brand new Ferrari. I should have been furious. But all I could do was stare at her and wonder why I couldn't look away. It's okay, I said, softer than I expected. Are you hurt? She blinked, surprised. No, I don't think so. Just shaken. I nodded. All right. That's what matters. We stood in the street, surrounded by honking cars and annoyed drivers squeezing around us. But for those few minutes, it felt like there were only 2 people in the world. I looked at the damage. My bumper had a dent. Barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. Her front was worse, cracked headlight, bent hood. She glanced at her car like it had just betrayed her. I really don't have insurance, she muttered. Not right now. I just started a new job, and I'm behind on everything. If you want to sue me, or report it, I understand. I'm really sorry. I should have said something logical. Asked for her license. Called someone. Gotten this documented. Instead, I asked, what's your name? She looked up, confused. What? Your name, I repeated. I'm Nick. There was a pause. Then she answered, Emma. It suited her. Soft. Honest. I'm not going to sue you, Emma. Her lip trembled slightly. Why not? I shrugged. Because it's a car. And you're clearly more upset than I am. She stared at me like I was speaking another language. Are you always like this? That made me laugh. No. I've been told I'm usually much worse. That earned the tiniest smile. I offered to call a tow truck for her, but she shook her head. It still runs. I can get it to a shop. I hesitated, watching her eyes dart to the corner of the street, like she was searching for an escape. Can I give you a ride somewhere? I asked, before I could stop myself. She looked at me like I had grown 2 heads. You want me to get in your car? After I just hit it. I smiled. You owe it that much. She didn't laugh, but she didn't walk away either. After a long pause, she said, I work 2 blocks down. A cafe. I can walk. In those shoes. I glanced at her worn flats. Let me drive you. It'll be faster. She looked down, then nodded, just once. And just like that, Emma climbed into my car. She was quiet for most of the ride, her fingers clutching her small purse like it was a lifeline. I didn't press her with questions. I didn't know what I was doing, honestly. I just knew I wanted her to stay. A little longer. At the cafe, she opened the door, stepped out, and turned to me. Thank you, she said. For being kind. I nodded. Can I see you again? She froze. Why? I don't know yet, I answered honestly. I just want to. She hesitated, then said, if you're serious, come by sometime. I'm there most mornings. Then she walked inside. I sat in the Ferrari, hands on the wheel, staring after her. Something had shifted. I didn't know what yet. But I felt it. And I had no idea what was coming next. I don't know what got into me that morning. Maybe it was the way her voice trembled when she said her name. Or the way she clutched her purse like it was the last thing she owned. But all I knew was that I couldn't get Emma out of my head. I had meetings that day. A full schedule. My assistant practically chased me into the office when I finally arrived, 35 minutes late, with a dent in the Ferrari and a distracted look on my face. Normally, I'd have been furious. I hate being late. I hate disorder. I built my entire life on routine and control. But nothing felt normal after that encounter. I sat through a boardroom full of people pitching ideas, sales figures flying across digital screens, voices buzzing around me. But I didn't hear any of it. All I could see was Emma's face as she looked up at me, frightened, apologetic, and somehow, underneath it all, strong. Like life had made her cautious, but not bitter. I couldn't remember the last time someone looked at me like that. When you have money, people look at you with admiration, envy, or calculation. Sometimes fear. But rarely honesty. Emma hadn't even flinched when I told her the name of the car she hit. In fact, I'm pretty sure she didn't care. That alone was refreshing. By noon, I had made up my mind. I wrapped up the meeting early, told my assistant I was going to inspect the Ferrari damage, and took the car out again. I didn't drive toward the repair shop. I drove toward the cafe. The street was busy, but I spotted the sign, Morning Bean. Small place. Tucked between a dry cleaner and a pharmacy. It looked like the kind of cafe that probably served great pastries and even better gossip. I parked around the corner, no more front row accidents for me, and walked in. The moment I stepped inside, the smell hit me. Coffee beans, baked goods, and something else, cinnamon, maybe. It was warm. Familiar. Unpretentious. People sat with laptops, or talking softly in booths. No one looked twice at me. And then I saw her. Emma stood behind the counter, her hair now tied neatly back, wearing a dark green apron with a name tag that simply read Emma. She was scribbling something on a cup when she looked up and froze. For a moment, I thought I'd made a mistake. But then she gave the tiniest smile. Not one of those polite, forced smiles baristas give to get a tip. No, this was different. It was, amused. You're serious, she said as I approached. I shrugged. I said I'd come by. She handed a coffee to the woman ahead of me, then turned back to me. You want something? Coffee, I said. Surprise me. She raised an eyebrow. People like you don't usually ask to be surprised. People like me. She leaned slightly over the counter, her voice soft but pointed. Rich. Polished. The kind who probably haven't had a bad cup of coffee in years. I smiled. Maybe I've been drinking the wrong kind of coffee. She shook her head but went to work, moving with a quiet confidence. Her hands knew the rhythm. Pour. Steam. Pour. Swirl. When she handed me the cup, I glanced at it. What is it? Flat white. Not too sweet. Thought you might like something balanced. I took a sip. It was good. Really good. You were right, I said. This might ruin me for corporate coffee forever. She actually laughed. Glad to hear I've corrupted you. We stood there for a moment, letting the banter settle into something warmer. I wanted to know more about her. Everything, really. But I didn't want to push. So I asked, "Can I sit?" She nodded toward a corner table. "If you don't mind the noise." I sat and watched her work. There was something almost hypnotic about it, her quiet efficiency, the way she smiled at regulars, the way she glanced at me occasionally with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Like she couldn't quite figure out why I was there. And the truth is, I couldn't either. After about 20 minutes, the afternoon lull hit, and she came over with a second cup of coffee. "On the house," she said. "You looked like you needed a refill." "Thanks," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. "Can I offer you a seat?" She hesitated. "Technically, I'm on the clock. Technically, I won't tell." That made her smirk. She sat. "So," she said, folding her hands on the table. "What's your deal?" "My deal? You're not here because you need coffee," she said bluntly. "You're not here because you're bored. So, why are you really here?" I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, at least not in the magazine sense. But she had something else. Depth. Like she had stories behind her eyes. "I'm here because you surprised me," I said honestly. "And that doesn't happen often." Her expression softened slightly. "You mean I rear-ended you?" I laughed. "Well, yeah. That was a unique introduction." She bit her lip. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't texting, if that's what you were thinking. I never thought you were. Honestly." She looked down at the table, fingers tracing the edge of her mug. "It's just been a tough week. I was distracted. My sister's kid is sick, rent's overdue, my car's falling apart, and now I might lose my job because I was late yesterday." I blinked. "Wait, because of the accident?" She nodded. "They don't exactly hand out second chances around here." I stared at her, heart twisting a little. "Emma. I can talk to your manager." She shook her head. "No. Please don't. That would just make it worse." Her pride was palpable. Fierce. It made me like her even more. "I didn't come here to fix your life," I said quietly. "I just wanted to know more about the woman who crashed into mine." She met my eyes then. For the first time, fully. And something passed between us. Not attraction, though there was that too, but understanding. A kind of mutual curiosity that didn't come around often. The bell above the door rang. Another rush. She stood quickly. "Duty calls," she said. "Thanks for the company." I stood, too. "Can I see you again?" "Not here." "Like, for dinner?" She hesitated. "I can come pick you up," I added. "No Ferraris this time." "I promise." She studied me. Then finally nodded. "Okay. One dinner." And then she was gone again, back behind the counter, blending into her world. But I knew, mine was already starting to shift. I didn't sleep much the night before our dinner. It was ridiculous, really. I've pitched billion-dollar ideas in front of stone-faced investors. I've dined with politicians, artists, even the occasional celebrity. I've built an empire from nothing but a college laptop and sheer obsession. But nothing made my palms sweat like the thought of sitting across from Emma for more than 15 uninterrupted minutes. Maybe it was because I knew that this wasn't just a date. Not for me. I wasn't just curious anymore, I was invested. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. I picked her up at 7 p.m. sharp. True to my word, I left the Ferrari in the garage and brought the black Mercedes instead. Understated, quiet, respectful. When she stepped outside her apartment, wearing a navy blue dress and a jean jacket, I realized how badly I had underestimated just how much she could disarm me. "Wow," I said, before I could help myself. She gave me a shy smile. You're not so bad yourself. I opened the passenger door, and she slid in without hesitation. That small gesture, her trust, meant more than I could say. I had reservations at a quiet Italian place downtown. Not the kind where they plate food like modern art, but one that served actual meals and dimmed the lights just enough to make you forget the world outside. Emma looked around as we were seated. This is really nice. I hoped you'd like it. She took the menu, scanning it slowly. You know, I'm not used to all this. All what? This, she said, gesturing. Being driven to dinner. Cloth napkins. Wine lists longer than my monthly grocery budget. I chuckled. It's just dinner. For you, maybe, she said, not unkindly. For me, it's a first. That hit me harder than I expected. Not out of pity, but respect. She had clearly built her life with far fewer safety nets than I'd ever known, and yet she carried herself with grace. She didn't pretend to be someone she wasn't. And she didn't ask for anything. That honesty was rare. We ordered pasta for both of us. No wine, she had an early shift the next day. As we waited, we talked. About everything and nothing. She told me about her sister, who raised her after their mother passed. About the way she used to draw dresses in the margins of her school notebooks, convinced she'd be a fashion designer someday. She talked about how life had slowly reshaped her dreams, not crushed them, just rerouted them. Do you miss it? I asked. She looked up. Designing. Yeah. She thought for a moment. Every day. But when rent's due and your niece needs school shoes, dreams take a back seat. I nodded slowly. You ever think about trying again? She gave a sad smile. Trying requires time. Time requires money. And well, she gestured around the restaurant. I don't exactly swim in either. Something stirred in me. An old feeling. The one I used to have when I met young founders, desperate and driven, with big ideas and empty bank accounts. The desire to do something. To lift them up. To believe in someone. But this was different. This wasn't business. This was personal. I could help you, I said gently. She tensed. Nick. No strings, I added quickly. Not like that. I know people. I know the industry. And I know talent when I see it. You talk about fashion like someone who still dreams in color. She looked away. You don't even know if I'm good. I smiled. I know you. And I know you wouldn't say anything unless you were. There was a long silence. I'll think about it, she said finally. That was enough for me. The rest of dinner passed easily. We laughed more than I expected. She told me embarrassing childhood stories. I shared a few of my own. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't performing. I was just present. After I dropped her off and walked her to the door, I stood there, unsure. Tonight was great, I said, hands in my pockets. She nodded. Yeah. It was. I'd like to do it again. She hesitated, then smiled. Me too. Then she leaned up, kissed me softly on the cheek, and disappeared into her building before I could say another word. I stood there for a full minute before finally turning back to the car. It had been years since I felt like this. Years since anyone made me forget the boardrooms, the deadlines, the money. She reminded me of who I was before all of this, before the houses, the headlines, the reputation. When I was just a kid with a big idea and no guarantees. I wanted more. Not just of her time, but of her world. That's how I knew I was in trouble. Because I didn't just like Emma. I was starting to fall for her. The next few weeks unfolded like a slow, perfect melody. I visited the cafe more often. Sometimes for coffee. Sometimes just to see her. We'd talk during her breaks, at a back table or by the alley behind the shop when she needed air. I learned she loved thunderstorms but hated the smell of hospitals. That she once got lost in Rome on a solo trip and ended up having dinner with a stranger who spoke no English, but made the best lasagna she'd ever had. I opened up, too. Told her about my family, How my father never understood why I dropped law school to start a tech company. How my mother passed before I ever made my first million. About the empty relationships I'd stumbled through, most of them built on appearances, all of them falling apart the moment I stopped playing the part. With Emma, I didn't have to perform. And I could tell it scared her as much as it thrilled her. She was wary of how different our worlds were. She'd say things like, "You don't need someone like me in your life," or, "This won't make sense to anyone." But I kept showing up. And she kept letting me in. Then one morning, everything shifted. I stopped by the cafe before a meeting. She was in the back, and her coworker, an older woman named Janet, brought me a coffee without asking. "She's not in the best mood today," Janet whispered. "Car troubles again." Something tightened in my chest. I stepped outside and found Emma sitting on a crate, rubbing her temples. "Hey," I said gently. She looked up, surprised. "You didn't have to come." "I wanted to." She sighed. "My car died again this morning. I had to take 2 buses and jog the last 3 blocks to make it in. I'm exhausted, and the manager's threatening to cut my hours for being late." I sat beside her. "Let me help you." She shook her head. "We've been through this." "I'm not offering charity," I said. "I'm offering support. There's a difference." She didn't answer. I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. "What's this?" "An opportunity," I said. "Inside is the name of a friend of mine. She runs a small design studio. I showed her some of your sketches. Remember the napkin doodles you thought I wasn't watching? She wants to meet you." Emma stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "You are," I said. "And if you're not, you'll get there. But you deserve the chance." She looked at me for a long time. Then slowly, she took the envelope. Her fingers trembled. "I don't know what's happening between us," she said softly. "But it scares me." "It scares me too," I admitted. And then, for the first time, she reached for my hand. Warm. Real. Steady. And I knew, this wasn't just a passing chapter in my life. This was the beginning of something I never saw coming. Sometimes life changes slowly. Other times, it shifts in a single heartbeat. For me, it was the way Emma looked at me that day, like I saw her. Not just the barista, or the woman with the broken-down car. But her. The woman behind all that quiet strength. She clutched the envelope like it might disappear if she let go. "This isn't just coffee anymore," she said softly. "I know," I said. "It stopped being just coffee the second you hit my car." She let out a breathy laugh. A small one. But it meant everything. She didn't say she'd go to the meeting. She didn't have to. Her eyes already said yes. But with Emma, everything moved carefully. Gently. I knew I had to let her come to this on her own. Over the next few days, I didn't push. I checked in. Sent her a good morning text. Dropped by the cafe when I could. She was always kind, always present, but a little quieter than before. Like her heart was running faster than her body could keep up. And then came the Wednesday evening call. I was in my study, finishing a video call with a partner in Tokyo. My phone buzzed beside me. "Emma." I picked up immediately. "Nick." Her voice was unsure. "Yeah. I'm here. I met with your friend. Elise." I sat up straighter. "And?" She looked at my sketches. Even the old ones I was embarrassed to show. I could hear the breath catch in her throat. She offered me an internship. Part-time. Paid. My heart lifted. "Emma, that's incredible." "I don't even know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll do it," I said. "Say you'll take the chance." "I already did," she replied. I said yes. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just two people on opposite ends of a call, breathing in new beginnings. "When do you start?" I asked. "Next week. Mornings, before the cafe shift." "That's going to be a lot," I said gently. "I know," she said. But for once, I wanted to be. I closed my laptop and leaned back in the chair. The world felt a little quieter. A little brighter. I couldn't have done this without you, she added. Yes, you could have, I said. But I'm glad you didn't have to. The next morning, she met me for breakfast before work. A tiny diner on Fifth, where no one cared who I was. We split a plate of pancakes and drank black coffee. Do you ever get tired of pretending? She asked. I looked up. Pretending what? That it's easy. That you're okay all the time. The question hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. I was pretending. I'm not okay all the time, I admitted. There are days I feel like I'm losing pieces of myself to everything I built. She reached across the table and touched my hand. For a second, I couldn't breathe. You don't have to carry it alone, she said. And just like that, I wasn't. That afternoon, I sent a message to my assistant. Clear my Friday evening. No calls, no meetings. I had a plan. One that involved Emma. Friday came, and I picked her up at 5. She wore jeans and a soft white sweater, her hair tied loosely. You're taking me somewhere fancy, aren't you? She teased. Not this time, I said. You'll see. I drove us out of the city, past the lights, past the noise. Until the roads turned quiet and the skyline disappeared behind us. She rolled down the window and smiled at the wind. Where are we going? My favorite place to disappear, I said. 20 minutes later, we pulled into a private cliffside overlook. I opened the trunk and pulled out a blanket, sandwiches, and a thermos. A picnic, she asked, eyes wide. I figured you deserved one that wasn't just on a rooftop in the city. We sat under the fading gold of sunset. The air smelled of salt and pine. She leaned her head against my shoulder. You really do all this just to escape? She asked. Not just escape, I said. To remember who I was before everything got loud. She nodded like she understood. Because I think she did. Later, as the stars came out, she turned to me. Nick. Yeah. This thing between us, it feels real. Too real. I know, I whispered. It scares me too. She looked away, brushing hair from her eyes. I don't want to be someone who gets swallowed by your world. I took her hand. You won't be. I don't want someone to fit into my world. I want someone who makes me want to build a new one. She stared at me, unblinking. Then, slowly, she leaned in. This time, she kissed me, not on the cheek. The world faded. Just her and me. And the sound of the wind carrying something new between us. But happiness, I've learned, doesn't come without its shadows. That night, when I dropped her off, I saw the envelope sticking out of her mailbox. It had no return address. But I recognized the stamp, corporate. Emma noticed it too. She pulled it out, opened it, and read silently. Her face changed. The light dimmed. What is it? I asked. She hesitated. Then said, nothing. Just a reminder that life doesn't like staying perfect. She didn't explain. And I didn't push. But something had changed. And I could feel it. I couldn't stop thinking about the envelope. Even after Emma kissed me. Even after that perfect night beneath the stars. Something shifted in her when she read it. The way she folded the paper so quickly, tucked it into her purse like it burned her fingers. It haunted me. I didn't ask about it that night. I told myself I was respecting her privacy. But in truth, I was afraid. Afraid that whatever was written in that letter had the power to undo everything we'd just started building. The next day, I stopped by the cafe, like usual. She greeted me with a smile. But it was different, slightly strained, a little too careful. Her eyes didn't linger on mine the way they usually did. Her laugh came too easily, like she was trying to convince herself that nothing had changed. I tried to act normal too. How's the internship going? I asked, stirring my coffee. Good, she said. Overwhelming, but in the best way. That's how you know it's real, I smiled. When it scares you a little. She nodded, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. And then came a pause. A silence too heavy for such a light conversation. "I got some news yesterday," she said, finally. Her fingers were wrapped tight around a rag she'd been using to wipe the counter. I waited, giving her time. "My sister's sick." The words landed with a dull thud. "She lives in Ohio. Kidney issues. She's going to need surgery. And she's got no insurance." I felt my heart clench. Emma had mentioned her sister in passing, a woman who worked 2 jobs to raise her after their mom passed. Now that same sister was in trouble. "I'm so sorry," I said softly. She nodded. "I've been sending her what I can. But now." She hesitated, then added, "She needs more than I can give." That was what the letter was. A plea for help. Or maybe a bill. Whatever it was, it had reminded her of a truth she couldn't outrun. She wasn't just living for herself. She never had. "I don't want to ask you for anything," she said quickly, before I could speak. "I know what this looks like. Like I'm the girl who gets involved with the rich guy and suddenly comes with problems." "That's not what I'm thinking," I said. "Isn't it?" Her eyes were glassy now. "I've spent my whole life trying not to be someone else's burden." I reached across the counter, placing my hand over hers. "Emma, listen to me." She blinked, but didn't pull away. "You are not a burden. Not to me. Not ever. I can't let you pay for her surgery," she said, shaking her head. "I didn't offer," I said gently. "Not yet." She let out a soft laugh, watery and fragile. "But I want to," I continued. "If not the full amount, then something. Anything. You shouldn't have to go through this alone." She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes, I wish I could just breathe. Just once, without the weight of everything crashing down again." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Then let me be your air, just for a moment." It wasn't some perfect line from a movie. It wasn't meant to be. It was just me, raw, unpolished, saying the only thing I could. Emma stared at me for a long time. Then slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Just this once. But it's a loan. I'm paying you back." "You're stubborn," I smiled. "And you like that about me," she replied. I did. God, I really did. Later that day, I contacted a private clinic near her sister's town. Quietly arranged for the initial tests and consultations to be covered. Didn't make a show of it. Didn't even tell Emma the full extent. I just made sure it was done. When I told her that the appointment was scheduled and paid for, she cried. Not dramatic, heaving sobs, just silent tears that ran down her cheeks while she whispered, "Thank you," over and over again. That night, she came over to my place. Not because we planned it. Because I think she just needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere soft. She curled up on my couch, blanket wrapped around her, sipping tea. "Is this what your life is always like?" she asked. "Some days," I said. "Other days it's emails, phone calls, boardroom politics, and wondering if it's all worth it." "And is it?" I looked at her, her legs tucked beneath her, her eyes warm and tired. "It is when you're here." She didn't say anything. Just smiled and rested her head on my shoulder. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man trying to prove something. I felt like a man who had finally found something worth slowing down for. But the world doesn't stop just because you want it to. The next morning, I was running late for a meeting when my phone rang. "Emma." "Hey," I answered, grabbing my jacket. "I have to cancel lunch," she said quickly. "I'm sorry." "What's wrong?" There was a pause. My ex showed up at the cafe. I stopped dead in my tracks. "Ex?" "Yeah. I didn't think he'd ever come back." Her voice was shaking now. "He's not dangerous. Just manipulative. He saw me with you last week. He's asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "Like what I'm doing with someone like you. If you're buying me." I felt my blood rise. "Do you want me to talk to him?" "No," she said quickly. "That'll only make things worse." Then, softer, "I just wanted to give you a heads up. He's the jealous type. He might try something stupid. I clenched my jaw. I don't care who he is. No one gets to make you feel unsafe. I'm not scared of him, she said. I just hate that he still has the power to make me feel small. He doesn't, I said. Not anymore. You've come too far. She was quiet. Then she whispered, I'm sorry, Nick. I didn't mean to drag this into your life. You didn't drag anything. I'm exactly where I want to be. But as I hung up the phone, I felt the first tremor. The outside world was starting to creep in. And I had a sinking feeling this ex of hers wasn't done yet. I didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't Emma's ex that kept me awake, it was the way her voice cracked when she said he made her feel small. I couldn't stop hearing it. She had spent her whole life surviving, keeping her chin up no matter what the world threw at her. And now, just when she was finally rising, someone from her past had come to pull her back under. I knew the type. Men who saw kindness as weakness. Who felt threatened when a woman learned how to stand without them. And I hated him for that. The next day, I sent security to the cafe, not men in black suits, nothing that would draw attention. Just someone to sit nearby. Quiet. Watchful. Emma didn't need to know unless she had to. I went about my workday, but my mind wasn't in it. Numbers blurred, emails went unanswered, and when my assistant asked about an investor call, I waved her off. Nothing seemed as important as the thought of Emma feeling unsafe. By early evening, I drove out to see her. I didn't text first. I didn't want to give her a reason to say, I'm fine, when she clearly wasn't. When I stepped into the cafe, she was behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine. She looked up and smiled, a tired, guarded smile. Hey, she said softly. Hey, I replied, crossing the room. You okay? I'm surviving, she said. As usual. I reached across the counter and took her hand. Her eyes darted toward the window, almost reflexively. That told me everything. He came back. I asked. She nodded. He didn't come inside. Just stood across the street, watching. Like he wanted me to know he could still show up whenever he wanted. I could feel the heat rise in my chest. Why won't he just leave you alone? I muttered. Because people like him only feel powerful when they know someone's afraid of them. Are you afraid of him? I'm afraid of what he might do, she whispered. To you. To us. That hit me harder than I expected. Us. She'd said us. But then she pulled her hand back and looked down. I'm not used to anyone protecting me, she said. Not really. I took a slow breath. I'm not here to protect you because I think you're weak, I told her. I'm here because you matter to me. Because I care. And I'm not going to pretend I don't. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw something soften in her expression. But then she turned away. I don't want you to get hurt because of me, she said. And I definitely don't want to owe you anything more than I already do. I stepped around the counter. You don't owe me a thing, I said. But you do deserve to feel safe. And I can't stand the thought of you walking home at night, wondering if someone's following you. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. I don't want to be scared anymore, she said. That night, I had her car checked and outfitted with a GPS tracker and dash cam. I added her to my own building's guest list, told her she could stay with me whenever she needed. She didn't say yes. But she didn't say no either. We were slowly learning how to be in each other's worlds. Not as strangers. Not as some charity project or romantic fantasy. But as two people, flawed, real, trying their best to trust something that felt like hope. Days passed. Emma kept working her internship in the mornings and the cafe in the afternoons. She looked more tired, more distracted, but she pushed through it. I admired her for that. And it made me want her even more. One night, we went for a walk after she closed up the cafe. It had rained earlier, and the sidewalk still glistened beneath the streetlights. Her hand found mine halfway down the block. I keep waiting for this to fall apart, she said. This? I asked. You and me, she replied. I keep thinking, what if it's all too good to be true? And what if it's not? I countered. She looked up at me. Then I'd have to believe I deserve something good for once. I stopped walking. You do, I said. You deserve everything. She leaned in and rested her head against my shoulder. I'm trying to believe that, she whispered. Just as I wrapped my arm around her, I saw movement from across the street. A man. Standing just out of reach of the streetlight, watching. I didn't have to ask who it was. He saw me see him. Then turned and disappeared into the shadows. Emma tensed. I saw him, I said quietly. She nodded. He's been doing that. Just watching. I'm filing a restraining order, I said. Tomorrow. I don't want a war, she whispered. Then let me end it before it becomes one. She didn't argue. That night, she stayed with me for the first time. It wasn't romantic. We didn't even sleep in the same room. She curled up on my couch, and I brought her tea and a blanket. But it felt like something shifted. A wall came down. A line was crossed. And for the first time since all this started, I felt her let herself lean into me, just a little. In the morning, I made the call to my lawyer. By noon, we had the paperwork ready. By evening, we'd submitted everything to the court. Emma was quiet all day, but not distant. More like a person trying to catch their breath after running for years. Later that night, she came to my apartment again. I got a message, she said, holding out her phone. It was from an unknown number. You think hiding behind your boyfriend will protect you? You forget who you used to be. I could feel my pulse spike. I've blocked it, she said. But it still got to me. I took the phone and placed it face down on the counter. Then I looked at her. You're not who you used to be, I said. You're stronger. Smarter. You have people behind you now. She wrapped her arms around herself. What if that's what scares him most, she asked. Then let him be scared, I said. Because we're not backing down. She stared at me for a long time. And then, for the first time, she said, Nick. I think I'm falling in love with you. It wasn't loud. It wasn't planned. But it was real. And it knocked the air right out of my lungs. I stepped closer. I've already fallen, I whispered. There's no turning back now. She reached up, brushed her fingers along my cheek. I'm not going anywhere, she said. But the truth was, the past always finds a way of testing the present. And hers was just getting started. I used to believe falling in love was the hard part. That trusting someone, really letting them in, was the final leap. But I was wrong. Love wasn't the end of the road. It was just the beginning. And as much as I wanted to protect what Emma and I had built, I was learning that love alone couldn't shield us from everything. 3 days after we filed the restraining order, Emma's ex finally crossed the line. It was late afternoon. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it the first time. Then it rang again. Something in my gut twisted. I excused myself and answered. A frantic voice on the other end. Is this Nick? Yes. Who is this? This is Julie, Emma's coworker. I think something's wrong. She didn't show up for her shift. Her car is still outside. And the door to the cafe is open. I felt ice in my veins. I'll be there in 10 minutes, I said. I didn't remember the drive. I just remembered the feeling, like the walls of my chest were closing in. When I pulled up, Emma's little sedan was parked where she always left it. The cafe door was half open. Inside, one of the chairs was knocked over. I stormed in, heart in my throat. Emma. I called. Emma. Julie was behind the counter, pacing with her phone in hand. I already called the police, she said. I didn't touch anything. I don't know what happened. She was supposed to open with me. I ran into the back storage room, calling her name again. Nothing. No signs of her. Only her bag, still hanging on the hook. My phone rang again. It was one of the security team I'd stationed nearby. Sir, he said, voice tight. Emma left the building this morning around 7:40. Alone. She didn't take her usual route. Cameras caught her heading down a side street. Then she disappeared off coverage. Gone. Just like that. My mind spiraled with possibilities. Had she gone somewhere on her own? Had she panicked and needed space? Or had he found her before we could stop him? The waiting was unbearable. The police showed up, took statements, reviewed the security footage. But their tone was calm, too calm. She probably just needed a break, one officer said. She's an adult. It's not a crime to go off-grid for a few hours. I wanted to scream. But I stayed composed. I knew this feeling, the helplessness of having money, power, access, and still being unable to control what mattered most. I called every clinic. Every hospital. Nothing. I called her sister. She hadn't heard from Emma either. Hours passed. Then my phone buzzed again, this time with a message. Blocked number. No text. Just a photo. Emma. Sitting in the back of what looked like an old truck. Duct tape over her mouth. Eyes wide. Terrified. And beneath the photo, one line. You want her back. Meet me where it started. My hands were shaking. My mind raced. Where it started. That could only mean one thing, the intersection. The traffic light where she first hit my car. Where our lives collided, literally. I got in my car and drove like a madman. The sun was beginning to set, casting the street in deep amber. When I reached the intersection, it looked just like it did that day. Normal. Peaceful. Too peaceful. And then I saw him. Standing beside an old pickup. Leaning casually against the hood. And Emma, tied to a chair behind him, gagged, but alive. He looked exactly as I expected. Scruffy, bitter. A man who had lost control of his life and now clung to whatever pieces he could destroy. You came, he said, smirking. I'm here, I said, voice even. Let her go. He laughed. You rich types always think you can buy your way out of things. That everything bends to your will. This isn't about money, I said. It's about Emma. She's not yours anymore. She was never yours to begin with, he spat. She loved me once. And then she grew up. His eyes flared with something ugly. You think she's better with you? Some guy with his name on a building. You don't know her like I do. I know who she is now, I said, stepping closer. Not who you tried to make her. He pulled something from his jacket, just a crowbar, but in that moment, it was enough to make my breath catch. He wasn't bluffing. Back off, he growled. I've got nothing to lose. I raised my hand slowly. Then take me, I said. Let her go. Whatever this is, make it between you and me. He stared at me. And for one horrifying second, I thought he might actually strike her out of spite. But then. Tires screeched. 2 unmarked cars slid in from the side street, my security team. They'd been tracking my location from the GPS I never turned off. They stormed in, and before he could react, he was disarmed and on the ground. Emma was in my arms seconds later. She was shaking. Her wrists bruised. But she was safe. And I didn't let go. Not at the scene. Not in the ambulance. Not even when she told me, between tears, I thought I'd never see you again. I would have torn down this city to find you, I whispered. It took days for the adrenaline to fade. For Emma to sleep a full night without waking up in a cold sweat. For me to breathe again without imagining her in that truck. But slowly, we started to heal. We talked more than ever. She opened up about the control he'd had over her in the past. The gaslighting. The fear. And I told her what I had never told anyone. That I'd spent most of my life succeeding just to feel like I was worth loving. And that the day she hit my car, it felt like I finally collided with something real. One morning, while sitting on my balcony, Emma looked out at the skyline. You really think we're going to make it? She asked. I didn't hesitate. We already have. She turned to me, eyes soft. I don't need a fairy tale, she said. I just want real. Messy, imperfect, but real. That's all I've got, I said. And it's all yours. She smiled, and in that moment, I knew. Our story didn't begin at a gala or a vacation villa. It began at a red light, in a rain-slick street, when fate decided to crash two broken people into each other. And against all odds, we stayed together.